When Jackie filed for divorce from Doug, the entire world was taken aback. She was demanding $300 million, an amount so outrageous that it was hard for anyone to believe. How could a seemingly happy couple end up falling apart like this? Jackie initially pretended to be a distraught wife. She told everyone that she had no choice but to leave because Doug had betrayed her and disrespected their marriage. The media went crazy, accusing Doug of being a bad husband who didn't deserve his success and of being a liar and cheater. Almost immediately, the public began to turn against him, but Doug was finally prepared to present the other side of the story. His version of events was entirely different, and he had no intention of remaining silent while Jackie conducted tearful interviews and portrayed herself as the victim. In addition to fighting for his money, Doug was also fighting for his reputation. While working in silence, he wasn't going to allow Jackie's lies to ruin the years of hard work he had put into building his career. The fact that Doug had evidence, proof that could alter everything, made this case even more startling. Initially, Jackie's attorneys were certain they had made Doug the villain and thought they had all the proof they required to prevail. Jackie asserted that she had sacrificed everything for Doug's prosperity. She claimed that Doug would not be where he is now if it weren't for her. Supporters urged her to call Doug a self-centered individual who had left the woman who supported him. But this was about more than just betrayal, it was about secrets, and Doug had a significant secret that Jackie never anticipated him disclosing. Doug maintained his composure as the tension increased, giving Jackie the impression that she was in charge. But in the background, he was preparing for the most significant altercation of his life. When the time came, he had the best investigators and attorneys on staff, as well as documents that could instantly ruin Jackie's case. When Doug's legal team came forward, they were prepared to divulge something so startling that Jackie's attorney became alarmed. Reporters, supporters, and legal professionals crowded the courtroom, anticipating Doug's next move. For weeks, Jackie believed she had everything under control as she sat with assurance. She had ensured that everyone saw her as the victim and made Doug appear to be the bad guy. But she had no idea what was going to happen. Doug's lawyer rose with a folder that would make all the difference. He approached the judge and gave the paperwork to her. As the judge read them, his face changed, and he then turned to Jackie's attorneys. "Do you want to elaborate on this?" The room fell silent. Jackie whispered something to her lawyer as she shifted uneasily in her chair, but it was too late. Everything had already changed. Doug had just completely reversed the case. Doug was exposing Jackie's lies in addition to defending himself. According to the documents, Jackie had been concealing money. She had misrepresented her financial situation and fabricated information to paint herself as the victim. Now, the same woman who said Doug had deceived her was entangled in her own lies. The situation became even more startling when it became clear that Jackie might be facing major legal issues, and that this was no longer just a divorce case. While pretending to be broke and requesting $300 million from Doug, Jackie had surreptitiously transferred millions of dollars into hidden accounts. According to evidence presented by Doug's legal team, there was a gasp in the courtroom. Jackie's self-assured look disappeared in an instant. The majority of celebrity divorces are dramatic affairs, but this one was becoming more than that. It was becoming a huge scandal. Not only could Jackie lose the case, but she might also be charged with financial fraud. The truth was now out in the open, and the most unbelievable part was that Jackie wasn't the only one involved in the scheme. Doug had known the truth all along, which is why he had kept silent and allowed Jackie to think she was winning. Doug had one last secret to share, one that could permanently ruin Jackie's painstakingly constructed reputation. Jackie's face went white, and her hands shook as she studied the papers. Everyone in the courtroom was staring at her in disbelief, but Doug wasn't done yet. He leaned forward and said, "Jackie, you've been lying about everything, not just the money," in a cool but firm tone. The judge turned to Jackie's attorney, who was equally as shocked as everyone else, and waited for a response. Jackie's voice trembled as she finally spoke. "This is absurd. Doug is just trying to ruin me because he doesn't want to pay." With a chilly smile, Doug's attorney produced a new set of papers and gave them to the judge. As the judge read them, his eyes grew wide. "When you treat people badly, they don't stay loyal forever," Doug's lawyer said with a laugh. "Everyone who helped you set this up, including your assistant, turned against you." "Jackie, do you have anything to say for yourself?" the judge asked, looking at her. Jackie knew she had no way out, and she was breathing heavily now. Then she did something that nobody had anticipated. She filled the courtroom with a sour, icy laugh. Jackie grinned and shook her head. "Do you believe I've lost because of this?" she said. "Doug, you don't know me. I have a backup plan at all times." Doug's eyes narrowed. "What are you talking about?" Jackie spoke in a low, menacing voice as she leaned forward. Did you really believe I didn't hide my tracks while doing all of this? I'm not going down alone if I do. Doug's attorney scowled. Is that a threat? Jackie's tone became even softer. I know something Doug believes you don't want anyone to know. I'll use it if you insist. Doug shook his head after remaining silent for a while, closely examining her. Jackie, I'm not scared of you. The judge used the gavel sufficiently. People started to leave the courtroom. We'll take a quick break before continuing, the judge announced. Jackie looked over at Melissa. You'll be sorry you did this. Melissa looked directly into her eyes. No, Jackie. I'm sorry I was silent for so long. Doug observed Jackie being led out. He knew this wasn't over. Even though Jackie had some trick left, he was prepared for whatever came next. This time when the trial resumed, Doug was determined to win because this battle was now about justice, not just money. The courtroom fell silent as Doug's lawyer got to his feet. Jackie's assets are frozen pending additional examination into financial fraud, and her request for higher alimony is rejected. Next week, the court will convene once more to address potential legal ramifications. At last, Jackie lost her temper. She stood up and yelled, You can't do this to me. Please, let's talk, Doug. We can resolve this. Doug gave her a chilly look as he spoke, but his face revealed everything. Jackie opened her mouth, but nothing came out. She had finally been confronted by the truth, and this time there was no turning back. Discuss me with the media in the same way that you discuss me behind my back with the investigators. Doug's tone was sharp and icy. We're probably done talking, Jackie. There was tense silence in the courtroom. Jackie slowly sat back down as the best friend moved forward. Her former position of authority had vanished, and the carefully planned and executed lies she had constructed had been exposed. Melissa averted her gaze as she felt guilty. Perhaps she ought to have told Jackie sooner and prevented the incident, but it was too late. The harm had already been done. Doug got up and moved in the direction of the door, his attorney trailing closely behind. Jackie's fate was set, but the case wasn't quite finished. She was totally lost. Reporters hurried toward Doug as cameras flashed. As he entered the hallway, his attorney firmly said, No comment. Doug felt liberated for the first time in a long time because the truth had already spoken for itself. Jackie found herself in a difficult situation. If she acknowledged concealing money, she might be subject to severe legal repercussions. However, if she denied it, there was already proof that she was lying, and worse, the more Doug's attorney exposed, the worse things became for Jackie. This is deception, Doug's attorney adamantly stated. She deceived the system to win sympathy while covertly safeguarding her personal wealth. Jackie started to breathe erratically. The world watched as her meticulously constructed image collapsed in real time, with reporters writing frantically and cameras clicking. She had painted Doug as the villain for months, but things had taken a surprising turn. She was the true antagonist. The judge rubbed his temples and let out a deep sigh. I will need more time to consider the evidence in light of these new facts before rendering a decision. But Doug wasn't done yet. His voice broke through the cacophony of the courtroom as he leaned forward. I have one final thing to say. And that was the point at which everything changed. The room froze when Doug said those next words. Tension was pervasive in the air. Jackie, who used to sit with assurance, was now trembling. Her breath was shallow as her fingers held on to the table's edge. But what followed was even more startling. Doug inhaled deeply before turning to face Jackie. I kept quiet for years, he said. I allowed you to distort the facts. I allowed you to paint me in a negative light. I gave the impression that I was the guilty party. He then faced the judge. It's time to share the actual story. Jackie's attorney attempted to interrupt, but Doug's attorney held up a hand. Your Honor, we have voice recordings and leaked emails that demonstrate Jackie planned this from the start. It shook the courtroom. Jackie's whole scheme was going to be revealed. The first recording was played by Doug's attorney. I'll make him pay for everything, Jackie said, filling the room with her voice. He believes he is intelligent, but he will never anticipate this. Then the screen displayed an email, sent months before she even filed for divorce. Jackie had sent this message to her financial advisor. Before I take him to court, we must transfer the funds. I want it to appear as though I have nothing. My case is stronger the worse I appear. There was silence in the room. Jackie's argument had just been ruined by her own words. The judge's expression grew stern. Do you understand how serious this is, Miss Christie? Jackie opened her mouth, but nothing came out. The most startling thing of all was that she had not only been lying, she had orchestrated the entire divorce proceedings to cast Doug in a negative light and extract as much money as she could. Her attorney whispered something to her while leaning in. Jackie, however, shook her head. She was unwilling to concede, but it was obvious that her case had just collapsed in front of everyone. Doug got to his feet. After everything you put me through, dragging my name through the mud, lying to the world, trying to ruin my life, I had no choice but to handle this privately, he said. I am asking for an immediate dismissal of this case and full damages for the financial and emotional harm she has caused me, he said to the judge. The judge nodded slowly, saying, I don't see any reason for this case to continue given the overwhelming evidence. He then faced Jackie. I advise you, Miss Christie, to be ready for the fallout from your behavior. Jackie sat motionless. Everything she had planned had suddenly fallen apart. What was unique about this story was that despite her belief that she could outsmart everyone, she ultimately played herself outside of the courtroom. Reporters had already announced Jackie Christie's shocking demise. Doug left at last, his name cleared. Reporters yelled questions and cameras flashed, but Doug continued to move. He didn't have to speak. Suddenly, the $300 million divorce case had collapsed in the most unbelievable way, leaving Jackie, who had once been strong and untouchable, with nothing but regret.